A very beautiful day to all my listeners all across the globe. This is George Nathaniel for you. Welcome back to my podcast, which is George Nathaniel and available across all platforms. It is always a pleasure to come back with very simple and relevant topics that relate to our day to day lives, topics that help us build our progress in life, and topics that help towards wellness all across life. Well, as I was going through this busy working day, I was on my phone talking business, talking about commitments, talking about responsibilities, and talking about standing by. Well, something very beautiful came to light. I could see my shadow, and then it gave me an interesting topic. I said, has anybody ever realized the value of the shadow? Not many of us. So I said, let us talk about the shadow, which will be the topic of today. So when I talk about shadow as a topic of the day, the simple lesson of the shadow that comes to my mind is its visibility when it comes into light. If we guys realize, if all listeners realize, the shadow is always there with us, but it only comes to visibility when we are there in the limelight. So let us look at this in a positive aspect and on a progressive way. So when we look at a shadow, let us look at our shadow like our life skin of self-belief. It's always around us and it only plays its part when it is highlighted. So when I talk about shadow in a very positive and progressive manner, I would say there are few things, rather there are three important things that I could relate to. Well, when I talk about our skin on self-belief, I would say that would be the first of anything. It carries us to all the challenges, the toughest moments, and puts us on the most progressive pathway. So self belief definitely is number one for me on the list. Number two, I would say, is sincerity. That is being oneself. Nothing beats one's own self or one's best. When we give our best, it's either a win or an alternative result. We never lose while giving our best. Number three, I would say, facing off with things. We need to face off with all challenges across life. We need to come in terms with life. Remember, I was always taught one thing by my grandparents, by my parents. They actually told me, if you have a good view of your dish, you will be able to relish it better. I was not really easy to relate at that point of time. But then when I sat down to relate what they exactly meant by having a better view of my dish to relish it better. So listeners, like I say, when we relate to our personal lives, when we relate to our professional lives, when we relate to our goals in all wellness around life, what are the few things that we actually look at? What are the few things as individuals we can look at? Or what are the examples that we can set for ourselves? Or what are the pointers that we can look at over ourselves? Well, I would say what we need to do is believe in stronger mindsets. We need to believe in results. We need to believe that each time we perform, we outgrow ourselves with time. We need to believe that we are the best version of ourselves. So we need to set an example for ourselves over every initiative. We need to dare to dream. We need to dare to dream big. We need to be courageous to go the extra mile. So, when I talk about the shadow is something that is always with us. It's a part of us, it's a reflection of us. So, I'm looking at life as a reflection. So, what we need to understand is nothing is greater than one's own self. Nothing. The best thing that we can do is give life a treat. And we can only give life a treat by living life king size. Most importantly, when we look at life, it's not about who, how, or when. It should be here, now, and successful until the end. This is what I would say is the shadow of our lives. Something that we need to believe in. Something that goes along with all our actions. It goes along with time. So, listeners, I would say the most important phrase or the most important takeaway of the topic, the shadow today, is it's not about who, how, or when. It's about here, now, and successful until the end. If we can be this, if we can believe in this, and if we can work towards this, then I'm sure that there will be happiness, there will be wellness all across. I always keep my topics very simple, very generic, because each one of us have got different dreams in life. Each one of us have got different goals, and each one of us needs to work for ourselves. I hope you like listening to my podcast, which is George Nathaniel, and it's available across all platforms. I also have a blog website, which is georgenathaniel.net. Either you could come onto any of the platforms, listen to my podcast, or visit my website, georgenathaniel.net. Come back with your suggestions, come back with your request, and I hope I'm able to spread the happiness. I hope my experience shares makes a difference in your life. Thank you so much for listening to me. This is George Nathaniel.